Already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions. We'll get away. This is what we waited for. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche, we're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow, we can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights up, died with my own doubts.
Lightning strikes by my window, hits my chest right in the morning, like a warning. Could have slept here for days. I felt your heartbeat, felt your mouth breathe, but it's not real. We were close to see the sun, but clouds got in our way, and so
Well, hello everybody. It's Sunday night. I hope you've had a good Sunday night, at least live. I'm not sure when you'll actually be watching this. For those of you who are watching it live, hope you've had a good Sunday. And it's our time for one word, a time where we come together on Sunday nights and we basically carve it all down to one word to focus on for the week. One word that perhaps if we shine a little light on it, it perhaps can influence our character, can make us a better person, a better leader, just a better person to live with. Wouldn't that be great? Sometimes I get to the end of the week and if I reflect, I might think, I really wasn't that great of a person to live with this week. So I usually the words that I pick are words that I've wrestled with, or words that maybe I need a little attention on. So extra special attention to talk about. So that's where we are. As I said, we call it one word, just a group who comes together and on Sunday nights and just want to kind of carve away the world for about 15 minutes and focus on that one word. If you're watching, I saw several of you popped in. Make sure throughout the time that I'm talking, I love doing the live stuff, but the disadvantage is I don't see your faces necessarily. I just see comments. So if you've got comments or reflections or thoughts or questions or even disagreements, stick them in the chat wherever you're watching, either Facebook or YouTube. I'd love to engage those, kind of see. I go back and look and see who is there, but also during the actual one-word time, we go through that at the end of the session tonight. I'd love to hear from you as well. So I'll give you some more opportunities, but throughout, if something comes to mind, just put it in the chat and we'll talk about it. All right, let's talk about tonight's word. And you may say, most of the words, a lot of times it's about our character and things of that nature. Tonight's a little different word, and so here's the word. We're going to talk about tension. All right? We're going to talk about, tension, conflict. You could, it has some brother, sister words that you could perhaps connect to it. But I don't know about you, but tension is a part of life. In fact, look at this quote. It says, maturity is achieved when a person accepts life as full of tension, right? I mean, I don't know, unless you've been living under a rock for your entire life, I don't know many people who get through a lifetime without a decent amount of tension and really trying to figure out how to navigate through it. But did you know that there is healthy tension? In other words, there's tension that maybe you don't want to rush through. Maybe it's tension that is there for a purpose. It's tension that it would be better for you to manage through it than to just completely remove it. It's just part of life. And I think if we look back, we can all agree that there have been times that we've gone through tension or conflict or trials, and we're better for it today than we were not having gone through it. So I call it healthy tension. And so when I thought about this topic and I thought, how are we going to get at this? I've started brainstorming and just sort of reflecting. And the first thing that came to my mind is that we all have a tendency in dealing with tension, at least my experience myself, and then with others that I've either leaders I've worked with or people that I've been around. We fall into two categories as to how we deal with this word. Number one is we either do something about it. We line up on two sides. We either do something about tension or we don't do anything. We do nothing. In other words, we either want to do something and hit it head on and eliminate it, or we decide we want to just get rid of it. And, we don't want to have anything to do with it. We're going to ignore it. We're going to hope it goes away. How many of you have done that or fall in one of those categories, right? I mean, we all seem to be in one or the other. So let's break those down in the few minutes we have left. First of all, let's talk about those who tension comes up and they attack it, like a bull. I mean, they attack it, they're head on. They want to get rid of the tension. They want to call it out remove it, carve it out of an organization or a family or whatever. They're always the ones when they sense something, they're just calling it out all the time. And sometimes that's good. But when we were thinking about, I was looking at this, kind of doing some reading on this week, and I came across something that I'd read many years ago, but it reminded me when I was thinking about this topic, and that is this idea of or versus and. Now, what does that mean? All right, first of all, I grew up in an or culture, and I think we still live in an or world. What does that mean? In other words, it's either right or wrong. It's either black or white. It's either good or bad. I either win or lose. In other words, it can't be both. It has to be one or the other. In fact, I would say, not to get into politics, but if you flip on the news, it wouldn't take you long to understand. Flip on Facebook, scroll through Facebook. It's either one side or the other. There's no in between anymore. There's no a little bit of this side and a little bit of that side. And or can be really considered as a scarcity mentality. In other words, I either win or I lose. There's no in between. And there's a different approach in regards to that, and that's what we call the and culture. It could be a little bit of both. Now, what does that mean in relation to tension? Well, a lot of times with tension, we think there's either tension or there's not. So if we think there's one or the other, then if we have tension, we fall in that category of doing something. We want to remove it. We want to make sure there's not. And so that's why we constantly think about the or. But look at this quote from Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great. Look what he said. Companies which are built to last do not accept the tyranny of the or, but instead embrace the genius of the and. In other words, could it be a little bit of both? Could we get both sides? Could tension be okay? Could the reason that we have tension is because we have two different viewpoints and there's good in both of them? There's some bad in both of them, but there's some good in both of them. And if we take the or approach, we don't get to the good in both. We sacrifice one for the other. Those of us sometimes, I tend to live sometimes in a little bit of black or white culture, meaning it's either yes or no, 2 + 2 = 4, that kind of thing. And those of us, I try not to, but if you do that, you can sometimes miss out on relationships, on experiences, and on opportunities because you don't embrace the idea of and. Somebody who does that really well. Let me put this picture up. This is my wife, Stacy. She has no idea I'm doing this right now. She's probably going to kill me. But she is the best and person that I know in my entire life. I can have my day laid out. I'm successful or I'm a failure. I get it done or I don't. She can navigate both sides with no problem. She can be as flexible as anybody I've ever seen. She can look at two different sides and figure out the good in both. She is the best and model of anybody that I've ever seen, and I wish that I could be more like her when it comes to that. So anyway, a great and example for you is Stacy. Now, let me put this little comment up here. First of all, not every tension is a problem to be solved. Perhaps it's an opportunity to grow. All right? Not every tension is a problem to be solved, but perhaps it's an opportunity to grow. My camera went out there just for a second. Apologize about that. All right, let's go to the next category. All right, what about the category of when you have tension, you line up on that side that says, I don't want to do anything. In other words, I want to avoid, I want to ignore, I want to look the other way. I don't want to do anything. I hope that I can stick my head in the sand. I hope that I can go to sleep. I hope I can wake up tomorrow and it's all resolved. In other words, you know some people like that. I don't want to do anything about it. I'm not going to address it. I've seen organizations that they don't want to address the tension, and so they just ignore it. In other words, instead of embracing it and trying to manage through it, they just don't want to do anything. For example, let me give you this illustration. I've used this before, but it works here as well. So I've got three arrows. Think of these as like three members of a team. You want to be heading north. So the arrows heading north are heading in the right direction. So if you think about it, which arrow, if you're looking at your team, if this was your team of three, which arrow is going to give you the most issues? And the most obvious answer is B, right? B's going in the total opposite direction. Well, the right answer is actually C. C is going to give you the biggest problem and the biggest headache. And you say, well, wait a minute, why? I mean, C's just a little bit off track. See, B is going so far out of the right direction, they're going to take care of themselves. In other words, either they're going to get fired or they're going to leave or they're not happy. I mean, that issue is going to resolve itself. But C, because it's just slightly off, we have a tendency to just ignore the C's. You know, the C's create a little tension, but not too much. So we just ignore them and hope they go away, hope they, kind of get back on track. But eventually, as the C's continue to go further and further, they start wreaking more and more havoc. So not dealing with the tension of a C can create all kinds of issues. Now, here's another example. I have relationships that I can look back on in my life, and some relationships that are significant. I mean, relationships that are probably as strong as any relationship I have. But one of the reasons it grew to that strength is because we had tension and we addressed it and we managed it together and we worked through it and created this bond together. So don't be afraid of tension and fall in that category. Hey, I'm just going to do nothing. I don't want to do that. All right. So here's what I want you to do. Post something in the comments about which side you're on. In other words, are you on the do something side? Like when there's tension, I always have to do something. I always have to be in the middle of it. Or are you on the, hey, I'd like to look the other way and just do nothing? Right? So post in there and kind of let me know. If you don't want to be too transparent, you're like, that'll let my secrets out. Post the ones that you've struggled with the most with others in your life. So put something in there and let's move forward. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave you with 5 tips of how to decide whether you should be a do-nothing person or a do-something person, right? Because here's the thing, tension is going to come, no doubt about it. So what do? How do you decide? Do I do something or I do nothing? Because sometimes it's better to do something, sometimes it's better to do nothing, all right? Or maybe a combination between the two. We don't want to say it's or do something or do nothing. It might be do something and do nothing. Might be a part of a combination of both. All right, here we go. We'll run through these really quick. Number 1, ask the question when tension comes up, why did this tension develop? Or why did it develop? Sometimes there's tension and we don't even ask that question. And here's why you ask that question, because most of the time it's not the obvious. Most of the time it's not the thing that's visible. It's usually something underneath the surface that causes the tension. And if all you look at is the visible, or all you look at is what you think is the obvious, you'll never resolve the tension. So ask, why did this tension develop? Number 2, who's involved? In other words, who's involved in this tension? What are the players that are involved? If you lead a team, you might have to say, I've got 2 people that are involved in this, and you know what? They can resolve it. So there's no need for me to jump in and try to make that happen. I might want to have a meeting with one of them and say, I need you to take care of this. But they can resolve it. You might have some people who can't resolve it, and you need to get in the middle of it. So you might have to do something. I once had a couple of teammates that just did not like each other. I locked them in a room, said, don't come out until you get it resolved. Well, they walked out and said they had it resolved, but a week later they were back at each other. So what happened? I thought they could resolve it. They couldn't. So I needed to do more in regards to that. So who's involved, and are they capable of managing through that tension? Number 3, what does a resolution look like? right? So what does it look like? Sometimes we come in like a bull in a china shop and we barrel through the tension and we want to get rid of it, but we don't even know what success looks like. We don't even know what a resolution looks like. So make sure you define as you get to the end of that tension. So what does the resolution actually look like? Number 4, is this a growth opportunity? This is one of those that you have to decide. I know when I owned my textile business and we had about 100 employees and people would ask me, what's the difference between you were solo and now you have all these people? And I said, the hardest thing is when I was solo, if I had a problem, I could resolve it in a matter of minutes. In other words, I could just, go somewhere, open my computer, go to another person that, maybe if it was a small team, we could resolve it, no problem whatsoever in a short amount of time. But when there was a large team, there were some times that I would see problems that I knew could not be resolved for 3, 4, 5 months because they needed to resolve themselves with the team. I needed to allow the team to do that. So determine, is it a growth opportunity? Does managing through it allow you the chance to grow? And then number 5, make the decision. Either remove or manage. In other words, remove the tension if you need to get in the middle of it, or manage the tension. But make the right decision, and it's critical to determine. You don't want to remove it if it needs to be managed. You don't want to manage it if it needs to be removed. All right, so I see a couple of comments here. Let's pop them up. There we go. Stacy says, you are right. You're in trouble. No tension, though. I get it. Right, exactly. Ann says, I'm a do something, have to tackle it and move on. Yeah, I'm that way, too. I can't let it rest. And sometimes that works. But I've also got myself in trouble jumping in too early at times. Angela says, at home, I want to do something about it. At work, I want to avoid tension. That's interesting. Yeah, and I haven't really thought about that. But that's an interesting comment because sometimes in different environments, we respond differently. And sometimes it's because of our leadership role or the teams or the people that are around us. And that's, goes back to that. I think it was the second tip of who's involved. Who are the people actually involved? Carolyn says, but at work, I hope management, let's see here. At work, it says, I hope management sees and does something. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're in a role at work where for whatever reason you can't make something happen, you certainly hope those that can do so. Ann's responding back, says, me too. Yeah, sometimes when we charge ahead, we can wreak a little havoc if we're not careful. One thing I didn't put up was timing. Timing is so critical. For us to do something, people, it's not necessarily do something now. It might be do something tomorrow or do something in a week. We're still going to do something, but timing is so important. Carly says, I definitely want to try to resolve it as soon as possible, which isn't helpful if the other person needs time or space to process. Exactly. Carly was reading my mind. Yeah, exactly. That's the deal. The timing of that situation is so important. All right. So let's wrap it up. I'm a few minutes over. I apologize for that. But let me kind of leave you with this last slide and really a kind of a quote or a comment here. Let's look at it. And basically it says, tensions can be removed or managed. Great leaders understand the difference between the two. So that's what we've been talking about, right? You're either going to do something or you're going to ignore it, or you're going to do a little bit of both. But here's the thing. The biggest issue is if you're a do something person, don't just charge ahead all the time. If you're a do nothing person, don't just charge ahead all the time. Determine, is this something that I should do something, or is it an issue where some tension that I should do nothing? And that, my friends, will serve you well because I have learned that the hard way throughout my life. So I hope you have a good week. Think about tension. Don't be afraid of it. Be patient if you need to be in resolving it. And hopefully that'll serve you well this week. See you next Sunday.